That's a truth that most people overlook at the end of the day. And we could have run all the fancy labs and prescribe all the targeted nutraceuticals and give you the most customized plan on earth. But if your day-to-day lifestyle is just a complete dumpster fire, none of that at the end of the day matters.
Welcome to Health Decoded, your number one source for real health information, with your hosts, Dr. Alessi and Matt Tack.
Hey, Health Decoded listeners. Dr. Alessi here. Let me ask you a serious question. Are you tired of waiting until something goes wrong to finally see a doctor? At Alessi Functional Health, we take a different approach, the right approach. We believe true healthcare isn't about chasing symptoms. It's about preventing them in the first place. That's why we created the Alessi Total Care Program. This is a functional medicine-based membership that gives you proactive, personalized care year-round. You'll get access to comprehensive blood work and functional testing, custom doctor-grade nutraceuticals, deep discounts on labs, protocols, and follow-ups, as well as 24/7 direct access to your doctor. Not just a 10-minute checkup that ends with another prescription. And here's the best part. As a Health Decoded listener, you'll get your first 3 months completely free when you sign up for an annual membership. That's on top of hundreds in savings already built into the program. This is your chance to take responsibility for your health and join a movement that's redefining what primary care should look like. Head on over to alessifunctionalhealth.com, click on our services tab, and go to Total Care. Learn more about this program and claim your exclusive podcast listener offer. Your health is your greatest asset. Let's protect it proactively. Welcome back to another episode of Health Decoded. I am your host, Dr. Alessi.
And your co-host, Matt Tack.
Matt Tack, good to see you, my guy. It's always good to do these, man.
Good to see you. Yeah, man. Excited about today's episode.
How you been? What's new?
What's new, man? There's always something new.
Too many things, I think, right?
Too many things. We're always working on something. But one really cool thing that's going on right now is our challenge. We got a lot of participants in the game, and they've been doing really well. And so we're just excited to see that feedback of how, like, utilization of what people are utilizing. And so that's been something that's immediate on the radar over the past couple weeks that we've been really investing into some people throughout this challenge.
Yeah, you did an awesome job with that app and really building out the whole kind of program there, man. I'm going through it too, and I'll be honest, I have not been as good about like taking pictures and logging the meals and stuff. I'm more on the fitness tracking side, but the accountability is good. Getting the message from you, and I'm like, man, I messed up there. So yeah, it's awesome, man. Well, good stuff. Well, excited for today. This episode is something we were talking about wanting to do because it's gonna really kind of highlight the purpose of everything we're doing within our clinics and within the mission, right? Like if we talk about like what's the broad mission of why we're doing this, why are we doing this podcast? It's to empower, right? To give people, listeners, patients, whoever, an understanding that ultimately you have to be your doctor. Like, yeah, I'm a doctor and I can help you, and there's other doctors out there, but like we can't do it for you and we can't want it more than you want it, right? And so like empowering people to like take that responsibility, take action, and set themselves up for like long-term health. So we really want to pull back the curtain on one of the biggest problems in healthcare today, and that's the concept that it's reactive, not proactive. So real quick, let me paint a picture, right? You walk into your doctor's office, you have fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, maybe you have high blood pressure, and what do you get? You're going to get some pills when you leave, maybe 2, maybe 5, right? That's very reactive. They wait until something happens, until the fire is basically full blown before they do anything.
Yeah, exactly. The system isn't really good at crisis management, right? But terrible at the prevention side of things. And you don't get support until there's a diagnosis code, until something breaks hard enough and fit into a billing category, right?
Yeah.
So, but functional medicine flips that script on what we're focusing on. We don't wait until the engine seizes up. We check the oil and make sure we're operating, right? We look at the patterns in your labs, your lifestyle, and your symptoms, and even your stress levels. We're asking, where is the dysfunction starting? And how can we stop it from becoming the disease, that proactive element? So, a few things we want to touch on here: the difference between proactive and reactive based medicine. So, you have your conventional approach, your reactive medicine, which is based on acute care model, designed for emergencies, trauma, infections, surgeries, all those things, right? Focuses on symptoms, symptom suppression, and diagnosing coding. So, very reactive approach. So uses standard labs with a wide reference ranges, offering missing early dysfunction. And honestly, what you are see a lot of times is that you might be getting measured somebody against that's 60 years old, and you might be a 30, 35-year-old human, right? So the algorithm isn't associated to the demographic that you need to see. So it's very reactive, disease care, not healthcare.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you get hit by a bus and you go to the ER, but if you're slowly developing prediabetes, autoimmune autoimmune issues, excuse me, or burnout, that same system won't help until it's too late. And the interventions they use often make the issue worse, right? So let's dive into a little bit more. Functional or proactive medicine looks at the pattern recognition or the root cause resolution. So this focuses on prevention, early prevention at that, and systems biology, looking at why things are happening, not just the what. In the acute topical surface, we look at the root cause, use advanced testing, and narrow optimal lab ranges, meaning you are going to be measured in the age range that you need to be measured at, right? So consider environment, lifestyles, genetics, and stress as part of the equation. And we're not just about treating like the high blood pressure side of things. We're asking if blood sugar, is it inflammation? Is it the blood sugar? Is it poor sleep? Is it high cortisol? That's the proactive, and it's completely personalized to you. So here's a real world example and something that we've seen. So we had a patient in his 30s, labs for his primary care said everything was completely normal. But we ran a functional panel. His fasting insulin was 17. His cortisol was high in the morning and flatlined by the afternoon. So what did Dr. Alessi do? He was able to catch the metabolic dysfunction and the HPA axis burnout before he ever developed diabetes or what we call adrenal fatigue. Um, so now here's the proactive care works for the long term, right? That's what we're always thinking of is long term. Like something that you're doing today will impact you 30, 40 years down the road. Um, Chronic disease is the leading cause of death globally and mostly preventable at the end of the day. So proactive care reduces healthcare costs, improves energy, quality of life, and potentially your overall lifespan. Um, Although we tend to focus on health span versus lifespan, right? The quality of your years, no matter how many years you actually get out, right? So health span over lifespan is always what we focus on. So patients become empowered and informed participants in their own health. That's why we do this podcast, is to drive you value and so that you can take ownership of your own health. So here's a relevant study that we wanted to bring in from the Journal of Prevention Medicine in 2021. So preventative personalized care models reduce the burden of chronic disease and improve equality adjusted life years. That's what we're talking about, that health span over lifespan. So quality adjusted life years. The truth is most people don't know how good they can feel. They just live in pain because they never had anyone look at their health from a proactive lens. And that's the goal of this Alessi Total Care, right? It's to give people that edge, that clarity, and that energy back. So when you're proactive, you don't just avoid the disease, you thrive from being a human. And once you've experienced that, you never go back. So let's stop waiting for the fire. Let's start building a fireproof life through proactive medicine. the proper supplementation and blood work and getting that data back. So now we want to talk about how we do that and the model we've created for that level of sustainability.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And basically everything you touched on, like I love the fireproof life thing, right? It's like, don't wait for a fire, prevent the fire, right? Like, oh, like we've got all these extinguishers, we have all these measures to put out the fire when it happens. It's like, how about we just never let there be a fire, right? That sounds better to me, because the damage that comes from that obviously can, be sometimes very long lasting as well. So, let's get into some details, as we always do, talk about how we do this. And then at the end, we'll have, I want you to kind of get more into the implementation side and what people can do. So, one thing we hear all the time in the clinic is, oh, my doctor ran blood work and they said I'm fine. Now, but then the patient, meanwhile, is exhausted. They can't lose weight. They feel like they can't form thoughts. They have mood swings. They can't sleep, gut issues, whatever. They know something's wrong. They're not stupid. They have this intuition. They've just been dismissed because the doctor's looking at a piece of paper with numbers, not the patient, right? And so here's the truth. In conventional medicine, standard lab work is just scratching the surface. It's not deep enough. And we've discussed this before, but most doctors are going to run like a basic metabolic panel. They're going to run a blood count. And then maybe if they're generous, they'll run like a thyroid stimulating hormone test, right? But it's not enough. You need to go deeper, because you're just scratching the surface with those tests and they don't paint you enough of a picture. It's like a snapshot, not the whole movie, right? So let's talk about what we do in our office. And this is a part of the program we've created called Alessi Total Care, where we're going to use comprehensive functional lab panels that are going to catch dysfunction before it becomes disease. So we're not just chasing symptoms. Obviously, symptoms are a good tell for us as where to focus, but we're trying to decode the early signs that your body is giving off that something's going wrong. So let's just go through some of the core categories and kind of what we have built in as almost like a staple to look for. And when you touch each one of these bases, you're basically getting a global picture of health. And then you can pinpoint, okay, it's low here, this is high. And now we start to, pull some strings, right? We're all about that pulling levers thing. So number one is definitely a complete thyroid panel. So most doctors are just going to run TSH and then maybe T4 and T3. I like saying this because it's like, that's like judging the football team by the kicker, right? you're like one guy, right? You can't make a decision based on that. So we look at TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and then always I want to look at TPO and TG antibodies. These are going to tell me if there's any autoimmune thyroid dysfunction like Hashimoto's. Now, why? Why do we do that? Because you can have a normal TSH and still have a terrible conversion of T4 to T3, which is the active hormone, or you could completely miss an autoimmune thing that could be attacking your thyroid. And then that goes undiagnosed for years until you become low thyroid, at which point it's often very tough to correct and you're on medicine for the rest of your life. So the next thing we're going to definitely look at, and we discussed this before in a previous episode, is blood sugar markers, right? And why this is so important, because getting that entire metabolic picture can prevent an onslaught of chronic disease. Most diseases are metabolic in nature or begin with some type of metabolic precursor. So we're going to look at fasting insulin. We're going to look at the hemoglobin A1C, glucose, C-peptide, and then we'll even look at like leptin and adiponectin, which are the hormones that can help with your hunger and satiety as well. And this also is how we assess that fat signaling and metabolic resistance. So your doctor might tell you your glucose is fine at 99, but functionally that's actually what we call a yellow flag, right? It's getting there. And so we see insulin resistance actually starting in the 80s of blood sugar. So if you're 2 points below that reference range high, you're bordering on it becoming a crisis, right? The next thing is we definitely look at hormones. So we can either look at serum or we run a test called a Dutch test, which is a urine and also salivary hormone panel. And so we're going to look at cortisol rhythm throughout the day. We're going to look at DHEA, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and even melatonin, right? And these are all critical for patients that could be dealing with things like burnout, adrenal fatigue, things like PCOS, infertility, low libido. That's one that we see all the time. people don't want to talk about this, and they get, I want to say, maybe a little embarrassed, or kind of they kind of hold these kind of things back, and they don't want to discuss it with the doctor because they think they're just going to get put on some kind of pill. And then now all of a sudden there's the psychological aspect to that, right? Like, oh man, I'm on this thing now. And so basically you can't treat what you don't measure. And that's why we need to know these numbers. The next thing, and this is a huge one and something that we'll sometimes just run this like alone for patients too, but is our inflammation panel. And there's a bunch of things in this that most docs don't even know what they are. And so inflammation, we already know, is basically it's at the root of nearly every chronic disease. And so we're going to look at your HSCRP, which is a C-reactive protein. We're going to look at homocysteine. We're going to look at ferritin, which is stored iron. We're going to look at ESR, which is erythrocyte sedimentation rate. This basically tells us kind of what the red blood cells are doing. And then another few that we look for, and that we will often catch issues with this, that say another cardiologist said, you're good, quote unquote, right? And then we see somebody has a high oxidized LDL, a high MPO, which is myeloperoxidase. This is basically a plaquing signaler, and then a PLAC. And when we see either one or two of those elevated markers, we're like, okay, hey, you're on your way to a heart attack. It's not if, it's when, right? But again, these things don't get looked at in conventional medicine. And then it's like, okay, let's just wait for the person to have a heart attack for us to do something. That doesn't sound like a great idea to me. So it's like, how can we get ahead of this? Because we often see this, and you and I have seen this in like healthy young males, right? Guys in their 30s. Oh, I work out all the time. I do CrossFit. I'm jacked, right? They look great. It's like, dude, your cardiac inflammation markers are nuts. Like, how do we get ahead of this before you have full-blown cardiac event?
That was me. I mean, I was
Yeah,
definitely
that's
case in
true.
point,
Yeah.
right? That's why
Yeah.
we
If you
get
don't mind sharing that.
blood work done. That's why we get blood work done quarterly, is because those tracers can happen within a quarter's time frame, right? And if you can
Yeah.
be ahead of the game, which like I'm ahead of the game, all right, well, how do I put in the daily supplementation in order to kind of reactivate and pull that back, right? So
Right.
just putting those things in place are really critical, and that's why I am part of the Total Care program myself,
Yeah.
because that I want to get ahead of the game, right? So those are just extremely critical things. My plaque markers 3 to 6 months ago were not what they were today, right?
Yeah.
And so it's constantly evaluating, adding new supplementation, but getting that blood work done so that we can provide data back. So hey, my MPO's high, my LDLO wasn't really that high, but at the same time, I want to be cognizant of it and start getting the proper supplementation, like methyl vitamins. I think we incorporated a little bit uptick in my vitamin D intake,
Mm-hmm.
as well as we incorporated our omegas across the board. So I'm really
Right.
high on omegas right now as anti-inflammatory markers.
Yeah, and that's a really good kind of little segue here is, it's not do what I say, do what I do, right? Like we're very transparent, you and I, about our sharing these kind of things, because it's like, that was my story as well. I had basically Hashimoto's disease of the thyroid, autoimmune, building up for who knows how long, right? And I knew nothing until I ran a functional test on myself, and I didn't have symptoms. I wasn't having anything crazy. I was a new dad. I was in a busy new job. And so I thought I was tired, right? And then I took some functional lab testing, and I was like, wow, I have full blown autoimmune of my thyroid, and was able to reverse that because I caught it early enough and was able to put in the interventions. And now I've created basically a lifestyle that I live that supports that, and not allowing me to get back to that position, right? Because once you've gotten there, your body's obviously leaning towards that. So, well, I appreciate you sharing that. That's good, man, because it just shows people that you can look phenomenal on the outside. Obviously, you're a specimen of a human, right? You're jacked, you're cut up, but what's going on the inside is very important. And so, yeah, that's really good. The next thing that we look for a lot is gut health, right? We're very focused on the gut is number one. If your gut's off, everything's going to be off. So we use like advanced stool tests, like a GI map, to check for things like dysbiosis, which is basically when you have an overgrowth of the pathogenic bacteria compared to the beneficial flora. We can find parasites, often very common, leaky gut markers like zonulin and antizonulin. calprotectin, which checks for gut inflammation. And then we can look at like pancreatic enzyme as well, because that is what supports that digestive process. And so your immune system lives in the gut. And so if you're constantly sick or you feel like you're battling stuff, you have to heal the gut first. So we've discussed this actually in a previous episode. You should go listen if you want more information on gut. And then another one that we test all the time is nutrients, right? We want to see B12, we want to see vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, and then an omega-3 to omega-6 ratio kind of index. These things basically tell us how your body is managing a lot of inflammatory things. And so, most people are walking around with fatigue or brain fog, or it's low nutrients, right? They just have never checked it, so they don't know what that is. And so the concept, again, is like the functional ranges versus the standard ranges, right? I hate the word standard because it's like, who is that for? You even touched on this. Is it for us in our 30s? Is it for 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds? How are we all within the same reference range? Makes no sense, actually. And so something no one talks about enough is that exactly that, right? Like the ranges are set for like a population, but not for optimal health. And they're so broad that it's like you could be anywhere, right? What is the reference range for testosterone is between about 300 to like 900. And so it's like you could be in like the 400s. That doesn't mean you're optimal. You're actually relatively low. And if you look at what ranges used to be, they've actually like lowered the bar. So it's like as we've gotten less healthy as a country, they're like, let's just lower the standards here a little bit to keep up with how unhealthy people are becoming. So it's actually, it's dysfunctional. So a couple examples would be like if a TSH lab says normal is between 0.5 to 4.5, optimal is going to be above, right? Like above a 2.5. And so if it's in the lower range around like a 1, you're getting kind of sluggish thyroid. And then also things like vitamin D, like your doctor says, oh, you're fine at 30. Honestly, we should be shooting for like 70 to 80, right? You want to be higher on that vitamin D. That's a steroid hormone precursor that is vital for immune function, bone health, so many things. And so, scientific supports this because the Journal of Integrative Medicine in 2019 said functional reference ranges can detect subclinical imbalances often missed by conventional diagnostics. And so that points it out right there, is like we're often missing the whole picture. So if you're told your labs are normal, but you don't feel normal, you need to trust your body, because there's a reason we call it functional medicine. It's about helping your body to function better, not just chase a bunch of numbers on a page. So now we have an idea of how we use the tests to obviously, find things and figure out where's the dysfunction. Now, how do we use that to create advanced protocols where we combine nutraceuticals, detoxification, and lifestyle medicine to actually fix the problem at the root? But before we do that, here's a quick word from one of our sponsors.
This episode of Health Decoded is brought to you by Authentic Nutrition, the brand redefining what it means to fuel your body the right way. At Authentic Nutrition, they believe that what you put into your body matters. That's why every single product is crafted with clean, premium ingredients and dosed with maximum efficacy to ensure you're not just meeting your health goals, you're exceeding them. No fillers, no shortcuts, no gimmicks. Whether it's their advanced supplements for energy, recovery, or gut health, you can trust that what's on the label is exactly what's in the bottle. Authentic Nutrition delivers science-backed formulations that work as hard as you do. If you're tired of products that promise the world but don't deliver, it's time to make the switch to Authentic Nutrition. Elevate your health with transparency, quality, and results you can feel. Check them out today at AuthenticNutrition.com and use promo code Alessi15 to get 15% off. That's THENTIC Nutrition.com, promo code ALESSI15 to save 15% and take the first step toward real, lasting health. Authentic Nutrition. Fuel your best self. Now back to the episode.
All right. So welcome back. Now that we've dug into the labs and uncovered what's actually going on under the surface, the next question is, what do you do with that information? So it's definitely not just throwing a multivitamin at it and hoping for the best. That's old school. Hey, cover all your bases. Here's a multi. the multivitamin can be beneficial, don't get me wrong, but this is where we go from diagnosis to precision, right? Because the power of functional medicine isn't just the testing, it's in the protocols we use based on the tests. So we're going to use doctor grade nutraceuticals. When we build a care plan for our total care patients, we're not just pulling random supplements off an Instagram ad or even worse off of Amazon, right? We're using clinical grade nutraceuticals that are chosen specifically to match your unique lab results. And we custom create these med packs protocols that come in the little tearaway strips that you know what to take, what time of day, when it's best. And it's evidence based. So it's not just guessing. They're very high potency as well. So there is overkill sometimes. We need to dial it back, right? We don't need to use as much as you think. Where you get some supplement from CVS or Amazon, you could take 3, 4, 5 of them and not really feel the effects. You take one of these more potent, B12 vitamins, you might feel a little bit stimulated. So they're definitely a lot more effective. And so we kind of have this phased approach, right? We're going to start with detox. We always want to make sure we reset and rebalance the system, make sure the liver, which is your filter, and your gut are functioning. Then we're going to phase into focusing on the gut health. Then obviously hormones, which is energy and vitality, and then the long-term support and maintenance. And so you can't just jump straight to hormone optimization if someone has a sluggish liver or if their gut is inflamed. And so that's where we have to focus on the phases of healing. And so phase 1, supporting detox pathways. We're going to start with a liver and cellular detox, especially if people have high inflammation or a high toxin load. So using things like glutathione and NAC, milk thistle, and then, supporting methylation and sulfation in these glutathione pathways. We have a really awesome protocol we use for the detox where we kind of base it on, someone's like categories, right? Like they take a little test and it gives us a category. Are you mild, moderate, severe? And then that tells us how much of a detox we need to push. And it's actually very accurate. Then phase 2, we go into the gut repair and resetting the microbiome. We're going to use antimicrobials, things like berberine and oregano to kill off the dysbiosis or that bad bacteria. We're going to rebuild with spore-based probiotics, digestive enzymes to support stomach acid, and then ultimately healing the gut using things like L-glutamine and different herbs as well. And people are often shocked. You start getting your gut health back, your mood changes, your skin, people get better skin, energy, once the gut is actually healed. Then we phase into the hormone balancing. So once you've detoxed and addressed the gut, now let's look at the endocrine system. And so we're going to focus on insulin resistance, obviously number 1, using things like berberine to balance that, the body's blood sugar. We're going to focus on thyroid health, the estrogen dominance, if there is any, and then adrenal fatigue, and then obviously low testosterone as well. And so it's an axis. We talked about this in a previous episode, the axis of how your body creates hormones, and you have to start from the top. And then phase 4 is obviously replenishing nutrients and building up that resilience. So then that's when you get into, okay, I'm healed. I'm not in crisis mode. I'm good. What are the main things you need for support? And we did an episode on this too. Like, what are the main supplements you need to be using just in general, because the body's depleted. Our nutrition that we get from the store is not what it used to be. And so things like magnesium, vitamin D3, B complexes, and omegas are fantastic, as well as like a probiotic. And so everything we do is based on our patient, not just what's good for you, but what's for you, right? And so everyone is at a different point in their journey. Sometimes their gut's fine, right? And we go straight into the hormone. Sometimes they're a little bit further back and they need that detox and support. And so it's all about, the patient and kind of their position. And so that's the best part, is every single protocol is built on them, their labs, their history, their life, their goals, all of it. And no 2 patients are going to get the exact same combination. And we're constantly checking in very frequently. We track symptoms. We're going to retest markers and adjust as the body heals. And the cool thing is, through this, we are teaching and educating and empowering. And so eventually, I want my patients to be able to read their blood work. I want to teach them, like, hey, when you start seeing this dipping low and this going high, what does that mean? Oh, that means I'm stressed. I should do this, right? And so they know how to read their own blood work and then support it. And so, it's real science. It's not we're not anti-medication. We're just pro mechanism, right? The body, we want to work with the biology and not just try to override it and hack it with medication. So think of this: the next time someone tells you that supplements don't work, ask these questions. Were you taking the right ones in the right dose at the right time for the right reason for your biology, right? Because those are a lot of factors that go into it. You can't just throw a blanket multivitamin and expect to heal. And so, again, we don't stop there. We empower people to take control, take responsibility, and ultimately be the doctor in their own life for themselves and their family. And so I think that's honestly the coolest part of what we built here with the Total Care, man. And kind of, you were a lot of the inspiration on this. So I'd love for you to chat or talk more about this, but that lifestyle medicine blueprint, right? And kind of what that looks like for people to, hey, we helped you, but now, like, here you go. Here are the keys to your future. We want you to take control. And so why don't you get into a little bit of that lifestyle medicine?
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I just want to note, one thing that you always tell our patients is, you're with us for 1 hour a month, but you're with yourself 24/7,
Right.
right? And so that's a truth that most people overlook at the end of the day. And we could have run all the fancy labs and prescribe all the targeted nutraceuticals and give you the most customized plan on earth. But if your day-to-day lifestyle is just a complete dumpster fire, none of that at the end of the day matters, right? So healing doesn't happen in a bottle or a binder. It happens within the habits of how you incorporate your habits throughout the day, right? So we just are a makeup of our habits. So that's why Total Care is built around lifestyle medicine, right? Real actionable tools that you can use every single day to take your health back. So let's dive into it a little bit more. And what you aforementioned was the personalized nutrition component. So we like, the real tactical ways of how you're starting to incorporate these things in. And you can't really out supplement a bad diet at the end of the day. You need both. It's everything, right? But at the same time, you really need a lock in your diet and what you're doing. That's what we're doing through this challenge is you're creating a storyboard, taking a picture of what you're putting into your mouth, right? Because at the end of the day, like what you put in your mouth is a habit. Um,
Nice.
and so we don't hand out generic meal plans. We teach you how to eat in a way that stabilizes, number one, your blood sugar, and then reduces inflammation and works with your body. So it's the anti-inflammatory eating approach, no seed oils, no refined sugar, and minimal processed foods. Um, or if it is processed, it's lightly processed, right? So we want to look at those. Blood sugar control. So we are very much protein forward. So protein forward, real fiber incorporated in that, and mindful timing of carbs. People don't realize like how important it is to actually time carbs. You can eat them actually later at night if you're working out in the morning and utilizing those appropriately. I think that's like the utilization of carbs is a really, really critical thing of like actually when the usage of that occurs, right? And that's why we're such believers in mindful eating, but targeting it towards what the goal is, right? And we do a lot of resistance training here. We recommend resistance training, and carbs can be utilized in such a great tool with that. So gut support is the other thing, right? Fermented foods, bone broth, elimination of those common triggers, which we dial in through. You sit down with Dr. Alessi or one of the members of our team, and we kind of walk you through, all right, what are those mindful triggers based on what inflammatory responses that you might have, right? Or inflammatory responses. So we use food tracking not to restrict you, but to reconnect you with what food does to your body. So food is constantly giving you a feedback. That's why we call it that. But gut brain access is constantly giving you the feedback of like, hey, this is super inflammatory, and I gotta figure something out here. So it's constantly telling you things, and whether we're listening to it or not, right, is one of the important things. So we want to be more cognizant and conscious of how we're listening to our body after we eat things. So let's dive a little bit into the nervous system reset, because stress isn't just a mental game, right? You don't have to just plow through it. There's different ways that you can incorporate new habits. So the way you breathe rest and regulate your nervous system affects every single cell in the body. Again, your nervous system is constantly telling you something. So in Total Care, we teach a couple different things. Cold water exposure. We love the idea of, doing ice baths on a regular basis. I wouldn't say every day, but getting into a cold shower, getting into an uncomfortable scenario where your body is going in from sympathetic to parasympathetic, right? We can talk a little bit more about that. But contrast showers to just build resilience in your body. Breath work goes in combination of cold water exposure. Tools like box breathing and CO2 tolerance training are really, really crucial in understanding. But breath work is just basically, setting a reminder on your phone as a habit of, man, let me get some big, deep belly breaths. So when we can really breathe through our nasal and fill up our lungs and our stomach with air, those are the breaths that you need. And being conscious of that and building that as a habit of 2 to 3 minutes daily, of maybe 3 to 4 times a day, right? It doesn't take very long and it's a simple habit. Then the mindfulness, parasympathetic activation, what we talked about in cold water exposure does the same thing, but the vagus nerve stimulation, grounding, prayer, meditation, journaling, getting up a little bit earlier so your cortisol levels aren't crazily spiked. If you get 15 minutes of just complete downtime before the kids wake up or before your spouse wakes up, if you can get that early launch period where you're just in a meditative state before your cortisol rises, you get that gradual increase, right? One thing we recommend is staying away from caffeine for anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes before you wake up to allow that activation of your cortisol just gradually rising in the morning, right? So when there's a nervous system calms, digestion improves, hormonal imbalance, sleep deepens at the end of the day, and inflammation drops. So here we go for a critical piece that I like talking about specifically because so many people miss out on the movement prescription. And you don't need a gym to get stronger. We're not chasing aesthetics. We're chasing function at the end of the day. And if you want a little bit of both, I don't fault you. But movement is medicine, and our approach is balanced and sustainable at the end of the day. And one of the big things, again, I go back to our challenge that we're having right now, is zone 2 cardio. Are we maximizing our heart rate? Are we scaling it up into blue zone activities, what we're calling in our challenge? Blue zone activities is when you get that heart rate up, right? That zone 2 cardio for metabolic flexibility and overall mitochondrial health. So that is a great way to measure. And if you are measuring, we have a heart rate monitor that gives feedback to our app that lets you know when you're in that zone 2 training window. So weight training for muscle mass, bone density, and insulin sensitivity. This is huge. What we recommend is getting like a DEXA scan to where you're at right now, and then a measurable of where you can be in 3 to 6 months down the road. But that's good data to get back as far as weight training and how you're building in resistance training. Mobility work is another big thing. And I'll be honest with you, this is something I need to work on more and more. I typically go to the gym, get it done, but mobility work is so, so important because mobility, a lot like the stressors of like running and launching and sprinting, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so we want to make sure we're constantly staying in that flexible state. And this also aids in our micro supplementation as well. So high in omegas allows us to be a little bit more mobile because we have more joint repair. Vitamin C supplementation allows us to be more mobile. And so incorporating mobility for joint longevity, fascia health, and injury prevention, right? So that's just getting those stretches in and tailoring yourself where you're stretching out those hamstrings, which are a large muscle groups, maximizing core, getting those stretches in there, really, really important. So we tailor it to your level, no CrossFit starter pick required at all right here. So that's not something we advise. So we would just want to give you basic exercises, basically to build your core and the elasticity of your body. So let's dive into number 4. Something that I just love talking about is the circadian rhythm optimization. So light is absolutely a drug at the end of the day. And what people don't know is that they are building up their melatonin supply throughout the day in order to get proper sleep. So most people's energy, the mood, and sleep are wrecked because their internal clocks are just completely broken. We coach the total care patients on getting natural sunlight in the morning to set that cortisol rhythm. That's one thing I love about Florida, is that you can get out early, and typically you can get that sunlight exposure all day, every day. But the earlier, the better is when you're building that vitamin D supply, right? Getting blue light, cutting out the blue light at night to protect your melatonin supply is extremely important as well. So if you're going to be on your phone, maybe grayscale it or get those blue light blocker glasses to actually aid you in that process so you can protect your melatonin supply. Sleep hygiene strategies are consistently wake up and sleep at the same times. Try to be really within a half-hour window, right? So like 9 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10 o'clock. You want to make sure you're within a very finite window of you're protecting your sleep times of when you're sleeping and when you're getting up, right? Temperature and darkness are also crucial. So a little bit cooler is always better at night. So if you're in the 60s, maybe low 70s range, but typically in the 60s, mid 60s to high 60s is really a great temperature to sleep in, as well as getting darkness, no light surrounded, and sound is also another thing that you want to eliminate. So other things that you can utilize is like red light therapy, magnesium, and glycine to deepen that sleep quality. Those are really great tools. I tend to use the sauna and the cold plunge, and those things that are something that you don't want. You want to get earlier in the day rather than later in the day. So at minimum of 4 hours before bedtime, if you're going to be doing some cold water exposure or sauna therapy. So when your circadian rhythm is aligned at the end of the day, everything else, digestion, hormone output, mental clarity, that stuff just starts to fall into place. It's just all in a co-alignment. So it's really beneficial for you just to write those things down and implement one by one. I know it's a lot, but you can just take 1 or 2 things that you can start incorporating over time, right? So we always want to give you support behind this. So here's from the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine 2021 said that lifestyle interventions remain the cornerstone of chronic disease reversal. It's important. It's important to really understand that, like, these small implements, these are it, right? This is the solution of what we're explaining here. So it's not your supplement. It's not a drug. It's not even a doctor. At the end of the day, the accountability is your consistency, your rhythm, your commitment to showing up for your own body, the only one we get in this lifetime, every single day. So as I wrap things up, here's my final takeaway for you is you don't need to wait until you're sick to start healing. Functional medicine gives you the tools, and total care gives you that map. So proactive is the future, and the future is right now.
Amen. I have nothing to add to that. That was so well done. And so, to learn more, if people are interested in learning more about how we help diagnose, reverse, heal chronic disease within our total care program, go to alessifunctionalhealth.com. Schedule a consultation where you'll meet with either myself or one of our providers, and we will create a personalized plan for lifelong health. Listeners of this podcast will always get exclusive discounts and price reductions on all of our protocols and lab tests. So definitely mention that.
And as always, if you found value in today's show, please subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. That's how we can grow this message and change more lives. So want to get in touch with us or be featured on an episode, email us at ask@alessifxhealth.com. And as always, visit us at alessifxhealth.com. Sign up for our newsletter and check out our resources page to learn more about our approach to nutrition and cutting-edge therapies.
And thank you again for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the science, bust the myths, and help you take control of your health naturally. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.
Thank you for tuning in to Health Decoded, where we break down the truth about all things health and empower you to take charge of your well-being. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. For more resources and personalized support, visit us at alessifunctionalhealth.com and sign up for our newsletter. To hear your questions answered live on the show, send them to ask@alessifxhealth.com. That's ask@alessifxhealth.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and remember, your health is in your hands.